Welcome to Just Minding My Business Radio, where we are moving at the speed of God, learning what we didn't know we didn't know. I'm your host, Ida Crawford.
And I'm your co-host, Ruth Haskins.
So grab a pen and paper and get ready for information that you can use. Welcome to Just Minding My Business Media, LLC. We are so happy that you joined us today. Just so you know, Just Minding My Business, LLC, the digital magazine experience, is the place to be seen and heard. View the October issue online to see and hear what the buzz is all about. Better yet, be a part of the February edition of Just Minding My Business Media, LLC, the digital magazine experience. Contact us at jmmbradio@gmail.com or visit us online at www.jmmbbmediallc.com. Today, we welcome Nate Jenson, who has a master's degree in forensic accounting. He is a certified management accountant and is certified in strategy and competitive analysis through the Institute of Management Accountants. But more importantly, he has somewhat around 30,000 hours of helping small business owners understand what's driving or inhibiting their profitability and cash flow and what to do about it. He has built and sold 3 bookkeeping and CFO companies and has helped over 50 companies to get insight into their profitability. His current focus is providing this insight in a more automated way so that companies that need the insight but can't quite afford it at a fractional CFO can still have a clear picture of what they need to change to improve their profitability. Wow, you have been so busy.
Thanks. Thank you, Ida. Yes, off air, we were just talking about how busy you have been. But yeah, I've not done a lot of podcasting, but I've certainly been around the block in finance and accounting, and especially as it comes to small business.
Wow. Well, I like to start with beginnings.
Okay.
How did you get on this road?
Almost accidentally, actually. I've got 15 or 20 years worth of story. I'm going to condense it a whole bunch just to make sure we stay in the time. I somewhere in the early 2000s, let's say around 2005, I was a young father, had a wife, 3 kids, and I just couldn't figure things out, right? I actually just graduated with a bachelor's in marketing, right? Way far away from accounting. And I couldn't find a job in that area to save my life, at least not that would pay me what I needed it to. And as I was struggling, my father-in-law actually had a business, and he's like, "Hey, do you know how to use QuickBooks?" And I said, "Well, yeah, kind of. I've used it." And he said, "Do you want to come do my bookkeeping for me?" Right? He was handing me kind of a free opportunity to make a little cash because he knew his daughter and her husband, me, needed it. As I started bookkeeping, and that was just part-time. I went out and I'm like, as long as I'm keeping books, let's go find another part-time bookkeeping job, and that'll have sort of the full-time equivalent, right? As I started keeping books, it just clicked for me. Like the order and the organization in accounting, the structure that's there, it made sense to me. It kind of resonated with me. I had a very cool boss soon after that who actually offered to pay to have me go take a accounting class at community college. I did that, and it was cost accounting, actually was the class, and I just fell in love. I'm like, I'd go there every day and I'd say, "I didn't know you could do this with accounting. I didn't know you could do this with accounting." And I really learned, starting with that class, how to use accounting data to understand your profitability, right? But because most accountants, they start out knowing they're going to be an accountant, they get their master's in accounting and they go work for the Big Four. I didn't do that. I was in small business. I was already working in small business. And so I kind of took the non-traditional route to get into this. And so as I'm learning all these tools, I realized, you know what? most big companies, they have like a staff of accountants who are going to do your cost accounting and your CDP analysis and, your cash flow management and so forth. And I had no interest really of going to a big company. And so I just had to figure out, how do I take these principles, which are super valuable, and apply them to a small company? How can I get the data captured? How can I extract it? How can I analyze it without a whole staff of people doing that thing? And so over time, I got really good at that. And I went back and got my CMA and my CSCA, and got my master's in forensic accounting. And that's why I say accidentally. I never intended to be an accountant, but once I got into it, it just worked for me. So,
wow, it's funny how we kind of fall into things that we weren't even looking for.
yeah. And I'm always amazed. I see people who are like, when they're 18, they're like, when I grow up, I'm going to be a dentist. I'm going to be this. I'm going to be this. And they go do it. I was around 30 years old before I really started to figure out where I was going as far as a career goes.
Well, you're not alone. So many people don't really. I mean, I wanted to be a teacher in terms of a classroom teacher.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it didn't work out that way. I'm still a teacher, but I am mostly technology.
Yeah.
Which is where I have my gift is.
Out of curiosity, Ida, what would you have taught in the classroom?
That's interesting, because when I said I wanted to be a teacher, I didn't know what I was going to teach.
Oh, okay.
This was, no reference, no nothing. I'm like maybe, I guess maybe 15, 16, something like that. I want to be a teacher when I grow up. I want to be a teacher when I grow up. And little did I know that I was going to be a teacher, but I wasn't. When I thought about it back then, I'm thinking traditional classroom kids, but I didn't know what I was going to teach. I just knew I would be a teacher.
Yeah, interesting. Very cool. Well, we didn't get a chance to talk for too long before we started the call. I'd love to know a little about your audience. Who am I talking to? What are they after when they listen to your podcast?
Well, they're looking for people that can educate them, definitely. Also inspire and empower. Most of our people are business owners. Most of our audience is around the world. They're definitely not local. We have people in China, Japan, Canada, all over the world listening. And basically, the whole idea of just minding my business is to support business owners to basically see and learn what they didn't know they didn't know.
Okay.
And we don't always know that, until we hear it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, I need to be thinking about that.
Yes. Oh, I've got a lot of that. I've got a lot of things people should be thinking about.
Yes. So I have a question. Forensic accounting. What is that?
So most people, when they hear the word forensic, they think like there's got to be a dead body and cops around with the yellow tape up, right? Forensic really has to do with a court of law. And so my degree in forensic accounting, it had a lot of your core accounting classes where you're looking at some taxation and some cost accounting and mergers and acquisitions and just sort of that general stuff. But I want to say 3 or 4 of the classes were focused on things that would relate to a court of law. So, for example, one of the classes, which was actually really fun, was called expert witness, which means people could call me, like a lawyer would call me and say, hey, we need someone who's an expert in this kind of accounting who can maybe go into a company and prove that the financial statements were falsified or something, and then be called in to testify and be that kind of person. I was able to do that twice. I never testified, but it was pretty fun. A bit stressful, I'll be honest. You got to be really precise. But then there's other things like occupational fraud. Hey, how do we prove that somebody's embezzling funds, or how do we catch it, or how do we prevent it? And so some useful stuff there. yeah, so not quite as CSI maybe as it sounds in the beginning, but certainly an interesting course if someone's in accounting.
Oh, okay. All right. So one of the things I saw that you talked about is basically basing your making changes based on not the past, but
Mhm.
the future.
Yeah,
Can you talk a little bit about that?
I'd love to. That's maybe one of the most powerful things that we do for people. So to give you a little bit of context just on me, I just sold, actually just about 3 months ago, I just sold my last bookkeeping CFO business. And we spent well, probably the most valuable thing that we did for people was the forecasting that we did. Because here's what happens is people, they have, let's say they have QuickBooks or whatever software, let's say it's QuickBooks, they run a P&L because they want to see, how did I do last month? Did we make any money? Did we make enough money? Or did we make money than the month before that, et cetera? Well, let's say you get through a month, and at the end of the month, you've got, your bottom line shows that you lost some small amount, say it's $2,000, right? And if you're like, I can't afford to lose $2,000 a month, I got to change something. And in the first case, you got to be careful because you're looking at historical data. Maybe you've already changed something, right? Like maybe somebody quit, maybe you hired somebody, maybe you lost a client, gained a client, those kinds of things. Anytime you're making decisions based on the past, one, you've got to be careful to see, what has changed from that period to now. Then the other thing is you've already lost that money, right? If it was a bad month, it's too late to fix that month. Hopefully you can fix it going forward, but you can't just, if you're just trying to change the past, you're always, it's like driving from the rearview mirror, right? It's like you're always fixing things that have already gone wrong. And so doing a forecast and having a forecast allows you to say, okay, next month, what does it look like? And if you look at your numbers and say, okay, next month, we're planning on losing $2,000. Well, I can change that now, right? I can make changes now so I don't have to go through that. I have made, I don't want to say hundreds, probably not hundreds. I've done a lot of forecasts, right? Like for every client, like, hey, if you don't have a forecast, you need one. And so we build it. And the number of times I've gone to a client and said, we've got your forecast ready. And if everything goes according to plan, you are going to lose money. Like it happens all the time. And so recognizing that before it happens, you're empowered to say, okay, what do we need to change? Can we sell more? Can we reduce costs somewhere? Can we, right? And then you don't have to go through that bad month to get to a good month. So,
wow. And that makes perfectly sense when you really think about it. You can't do anything about the past. That's water under the bridge at this point.
Yeah.
It should always be about moving forward, being better than you were yesterday. Right.
And it's great to know where you were. You got to know that. But the forecast lets you make those changes proactively. That's, I don't know if we'll get to this. I'm going to sneak something in here. The business that we do now, that's one of the things that I made sure we kept is the forecasting piece. Is, people can go to our website. If they, subscribe to our product, one of the things we do is we build the forecast that updates every month. You'll have that forecast all the time. So you can see how your profitability is going to be. You can see how your cash flow is going to be. And when I don't know if you read the economic news like I do. I read it probably more than is healthy for me. but my opinion, in the next 6 to 12 months, you better run a tight ship. And for me, that means you've got to know exactly what your costs are. You've got to know which costs are actually bringing value to your business. And you've got to be on top of it, because I think it's just going to get harder over the next little while.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. The forecast is not looking too good. I've already started looking at things that are not serving me, so to speak, that I'm spending money for.
Yeah, well, I think when you spend a lot of time developing a skill set, right? So if for you that's technology, for me it's accounting and profitability management. The longer I find, for me, the longer I'm in that space, the more I discount my own ability. Not my own ability, but I guess my own value, right? Like, because I've been in a place where I've thought, gosh, couldn't somebody else just come in and do what I do? But like, I've got 15 years of experience. I've got a master's degree. I've got other certifications. And you know, it's totally worth it for have someone who's got my skill set to come in and say, hey, let me just do your forecast, right? Let me just do your reporting, because I can immediately go through a dashboard, like a financial dashboard, and say, okay, you need to do this. Maybe you're overstaffed, or hey, your expenses are going up every month. Are you getting more value out of those increased expenses, right? I can pinpoint those things. Where for someone who's never been through that, they've got to learn how to build a financial dashboard in the first place, which is not as easy as you might think. And then they've got to know how to interpret it. And it's the interpretation that leads to those changes that you mentioned in the beginning, right? It's not just like, hey, how did we do last month? Okay, now I know, let's just keep going back to business as usual. It's like, what changes do I make to manage my profitability? Business is very much a science. Some people think it's more of an art, and there certainly is an art to it. But there is a science behind it, right? And it's very mathematical. X dollars into my marketing should produce this much in increased revenue, this much in gross profit, this much in net income, et cetera. And I feel, in fact, I know you didn't ask me this, Ida, but I'm going to tell you a story real quick. I had a friend. She teaches dance, and she had an instructor who he was part-time. I think he taught breakdancing, like some kind of cool dancing that a lot of the kids were interested in. Mm-hmm. And she was like, I have this dilemma. This instructor wants to go full-time. If he goes full-time, it's going to cost me more money. But if he leaves, I'm afraid that like I'm going to lose too much business, right? Students who are taking his class are going to leave. And I said, well, what's the difference in like the revenue you'll gain and the revenue you'll lose, you know, versus him going full-time? And, you know, I'm like, what's the math? And she's like, I don't know. I have no idea. And so I said, well, let's look at it. And we sat down and we figured out, okay, if he goes full-time, here's your new costs. If he leaves and you lose revenue, here's what you lose in revenue. And so we're able to say mathematically, you know, this way you're, you know, if he, let's say you bring him on full time, you're probably going to be better off by $200, or maybe you're worse off by $200, whatever the figure is. Now, she can make a decision on that if she wants to, or she could do it completely emotionally and just say, I feel like we should do this or that. My opinion is there actually should be sort of a combination of both. I think you can't make the decision without understanding the numbers, because once you understand the numbers, sometimes there's a very clear path ahead. Sometimes when it's close, you can then say, okay, you know, I'd really like to do this. And as an entrepreneur, I think if I make this choice, I can make it work. I can find ways to, you know, to move forward and make it bigger and better. But if your numbers are absolutely saying this is a bad decision, but you don't know your numbers and you choose to go down that route, even a great entrepreneur who's driven and, you know, optimistic and you know, full of good ideas, they're going to have a really, really hard time doing that just because they didn't understand the numbers. So all that story just to say, you've got to understand your numbers to make good decisions in your business. That's not the only basis for making a decision, but you've got to understand your numbers to make good decisions.
Well, that really makes sense. That really makes sense, you know, because at the end of the day, we're in business to make money. Mm-hmm. Simple as that.
Yeah.
And if you are not looking at your numbers, then how will you even know whether you're moving forward, stagnated? I mean, we can always tell when we're losing.
Absolutely. That is pretty clear. Yeah.
But at the same time, you need to be able to, I agree, know your numbers, know exactly where you stand.
Yeah. Well, I think even if you're a nonprofit, right? Like, or if you have a business where you're so passionate about the product that for you it is, you know, you opened a restaurant because you love cooking or something, and you're there because you love what you do, you've still got to make money to stay in business. You've still got to, like, if you don't understand your numbers, and you have any number of employees that, let's say, as soon as you get around 4 employees or above, if you don't understand your numbers, I can almost guarantee that you're being unfair to some of your great employees because you're letting some of your less great employees sort of just coast. And knowing your numbers will tell you that kind of thing. It'll tell you who's productive. It'll tell you which clients are more profitable. It'll tell you which products are providing the best margin. So for me, to be fair to your team, to be fair to your clients, to be fair to your vendors, you've got to know your numbers. Otherwise, you're just, the example I like to use is playing chess, right? And if you play chess, you sit down at a chessboard and put a blindfold on, and you're trying to keep it all in your head, it's very, very difficult. If you take the blindfold off, you still got to make good choices, good decisions, but at least you can see everything, right? You know where all the pieces are. You know where all the squares are. You can, so anyway.
Absolutely. So if people want to get in contact with you, how do they do so?
So my website, zerotocfo.com, ZEROTOCFO.com. And there are two things that I offer on that site. One is our automated data analysis. And that's basically, it's just a subscription product. We plug in your QuickBooks or your Xero or whatever to our software. And I build your dashboard, I build your forecast. And for a monthly fee, you get this every single month. It updates. In fact, depending on which software you're using, it updates at least every 24 hours. It just gives you those insights. One of the reasons I started this product is because in my last business, we were charging almost $1,000 a month for this product plus some consulting along with it. And there were so many people who needed it and wanted it, but just they couldn't afford it. Their business wasn't quite enough where that would just eat too much into their profit. And so we charge now $175 for your listeners. I'm going to put up a coupon code for $25 off per month indefinitely. The code for that is IDA.
Okay.
And then the other thing that we offer is if you do need some consulting, you do need some, more help, more insight, whatever, you can book time with me, not with an employee, but with me, specifically to review those numbers with you. But our flagship really is just that subscription product, because if you can see those numbers month in, month out, you'll be so much more on top of your stuff. So yeah, zerotocfo.com.
I like it. I like the name too. That's nice.
Good.
Great.
Thanks.
I have one other question for you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Calculating and eliminating scope creep. What the hell is scope creep?
Scope creep. So this is something that happens so frequently to entrepreneurs, especially new entrepreneurs. And I would say, especially in any kind of service industry. What this is, think of a marketing company, right? Just digital marketing. Hey, we place Facebook ads, we do Google ads or whatever. The client says, hey, yeah, let's do business together. And here's your monthly fee. We'll pay you, let's say it's $500 a month, and then you run all our ads. Great. Well, then that client's going to call and say, hey, while you're running our ads, would you mind just changing this or writing a new copy for this ad? And because the entrepreneur is very excited about having a client and taking care of that client, they say, oh yeah, we can totally do that. And then the next month the client calls and says, hey, could you just, with what you're already doing, could you just throw this in? We need some graphic design. And they say, oh, actually I got a guy on staff who can do that. That'll be great. But as these things happen, they don't charge for it, right? And so 6 months down the road, the scope of the engagement has doubled, and the entrepreneur is working twice as hard and getting paid the same. And so I've built a model for a client where we basically went in and said, okay, we could actually measure based on the hours tracked to each client, which clients were abusing that relationship and which were not. And it was interesting because some of the clients, we were able to identify we were very underserving them. And so some of the biggest clients, in fact, were like, holy smokes, we should be spending a lot more time with them. They're paying for more than they're getting, in other words. And we're able to take resources in terms of labor and say, how do we make sure we take care of these clients who are super profitable? And then for those that are, again, abusing that relationship, not necessarily in a malicious way, but just, hey, they're just getting more than the original contract said they should. We're able to go to those clients and renegotiate and say, hey, since we started, we've added this and this and this. We love working with you and we'd love to continue, but if we're going to keep doing these additional services, we need to start charging for them. And here's the amount. So That's what scope creep is. It's just,
Okay.
and most entrepreneurs have been through it where they just want to serve. They just want to give that little extra bit.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Of course, there's never enough time because this is just so in depth. So, we're going to have you come back.
I'd love to, Ida.
Definitely. Because, when you start talking about topics like this, there's so much that goes into it. And you can't always cover it all in one sit. So we like to put it out there. You will be back. So
Great. I'd love to. I appreciate that.
Expand some more. But I do want to ask one other question.
Go ahead.
What is the number one thing that a business can do right now to improve their cash flow?
Okay. So there's a few definite things, but it's almost a trick question too. So the first one, you've got to understand expenses, money going out that isn't providing value. Are you paying, are you accepting credit card payments, for example, and not charging a merchant fee back to the client? That's a big one. Some companies spend a lot of money on that, but just whatever the expense is, make sure you're getting value out of it, or just stop spending the money if you're not getting value back to your business from it.
Okay.
The second one, know who owes you money and call them. It's very easy to send an email and say, hey, this invoice is still open. Please advise on payment status or something. If you make a phone call to a client who owes you $5,000, they're going to feel bad that they haven't paid you yet. And they're going to do it. And if you're on the phone with them and they say, oh, I'll get it to you as soon as I can, ask for a partial payment. I would always ask, hey, can you send half, just half to kind of get us through? I've got to make my payroll too, or whatever, just to get some money in the door. The reason I say it's kind of a trick question is one thing people will advise, and general accounting practice actually advises this, is slow pay your payables, right? You owe people money, don't pay them quite as fast. In a small business, I've never found that rule to be very useful. What I've experienced is when you slow pay your vendors, it's hard to catch up, right? To get back caught up again. And then if suddenly things go, turn sour, you don't have that buffer to use when it's a real emergency. And so that's what I don't recommend. Don't slow pay your vendors if you can at all avoid it. That also keeps the relationship good, obviously.
Yes,
so.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Wow. So again, Nate, how do people get in contact with you?
Best way is the website, www.zerotocfo.com. And it is all spelled out, ZEROTOCFO.com. And yeah, there's a way to contact me there, or just you can actually book a call with me. When we do the automated data analysis, you don't just subscribe to it, you actually book a call with me first, and we'll talk through kind of your goals and what metrics are important to you and so forth. So yeah, feel free to do that.
Okay.
And that call is free. I'm not charging people to just sort of have an exploratory call. So
wow, this has been amazing. I've learned so much.
Have you? Good.
I mean,
I worry that it's maybe not the most interesting topic, but the people who need it and understand that they need it, it actually, I think, is pretty relevant. So.
Oh yeah, I mean, we all need it. If we say we're a business, we need to hear this. We need to hear it often, I would say. So that way we can stay on point, because a lot of times we get involved with the day-to-day, activities. And if you are a new business owner and a solo business owner, it's a lot of hats.
Absolutely.
And being able to delegate certain things that you really don't have time to figure out to somebody else who has that expertise, that's just going to help your business even more.
Yeah, absolutely.
More. And
absolutely.
some money is just worth spending.
Yeah.
It's just worth spending.
Yeah. I always think in terms of opportunity cost, right? It's like, if you're, again, let's go back to the restaurant. If you're an expert chef and that's why you started your restaurant, think of all the things you could be doing instead of your own, your bookkeeping or your financial reporting, right?
Yeah.
Or if you're the one driving sales in your business, you're wasting an opportunity by trying to do your own again, whether it's bookkeeping or whatever, that somebody else could better do and free up your time to do what you're really, really good at.
Yes, absolutely. Wow. Well, you will be back, as I stated
Okay.
before.
You say that like I almost don't have a choice.
Yeah, because we need to definitely keep this in the forefront of people. We're at the last quarter of the year. January is coming in. We definitely need to, and like you said, it's going to be a rough time in the months to come. So if we can get, our finances in order sooner than later, we'll come out a whole lot better.
Yep, totally agree.
For sure.
But to be clear, I would love to come back. So.
Oh yes, we would love to have you back. You're easy to talk to. Everything is very clear. It's not a whole lot of, what does that mean? You explained it very nicely.
I try to stay away from debits and credits. And
yes. Yes. And just so the audience knows, anytime you hear something on Just Minding My Business Media from any of our interviewees, leave us a comment, say something, because we really want to know that you are absorbing the information, and, just leaving a comment helps us. And we do have tools on our podcast that will allow you to either leave a voice comment or you can type it in. So with that said, thank you so much, Nate. And thank you,
Ida.
Our audience for tuning in. We truly, truly appreciate you.
Thanks, Ida.
Thank you for tuning in to Just Minding My Business Radio. I'm your host, Ida Crawford.
And I'm your co-host, Ruth Haskins.
We hope you enjoyed the show and appreciate you stopping by. Many blessings to you and yours.